Hello there, my friends. Hope that you're doing well today, and I really do, because whatever I say, I always genuinely mean it. But in the age of attention, people will do and say many things, practically anything, to be noticed. And what's just occurred to me, it's not just about being noticed, it's about being relevant. And the online world is we all know it's a very strange world. And in the UK here, there's a relatively famous author who's just died, and her name was Jilly Cooper. Now, the thing is, she was very famous in the 80s and 90s, and she knew the royals and moved in all of those circles, you know, so she's very, what we call high profile. All of these terms, famous, and we have influencer now, but it just means somebody that grabs a huge amount of attention. And this woman, she wasn't a particular, I mean, she was a dame, as it happened, didn't realise that, but she wasn't very dignified, because basically she wrote what we call romance novels, but it's basically titillating softcore porn, basically, you know. And she was a page turner, and people found it entertaining, very, very much an airport book kind of author. But everybody's coming out now in their droves to say, oh God, yeah, she's like so marvellous, and I just love Jilly Cooper, and she's like so great, and I just think, fuck off. It's so hypocritical, because if they were such bloody marvellous people, why weren't we hearing about them all the time before they're dead? But then as soon as they've popped their clogs, every man and his dog is coming out to say how brilliant these people are. No, they were just a bit famous, you know, and a bit well known and a bit creative, and you know, it sounds, I know it sounds like sour grapes, but it's so contrived. And also this desire for attention and relevance, it's so fickle and so fleeting, you know. I'm going to say it again, it's so false. It is not what we call in the trade evergreen content, and you're not necessarily going to be as fashionable talking about timeless principles, timeless values. You're not going to be quite as controversial. But you know, when I'm scheduling tweets, scheduling posts on Twitter, or X as I'm supposed to call it, I do put some what people might call spicy content in there, and I drop the occasional expletive and swear word. But really, the stuff that I want to last, the stuff that I put out, I want it to be as relevant to as many people, to as many ages as possible. But you will find people putting out an awful lot of tripe that they want to be true. Wanting something to be true does not actually make it truthful. And you're never ever going to get everybody agreeing with you, because the only people that happens for in history are tyrants. That's the only people who ever get everybody to agree with them, are people who are terrified for their lives, living under a tyranny. So we want to be more virtuous in how we put ourselves over. And I'm not saying that we need to stop there being shock jocks, but understand that whenever you're putting anything out, make it you. Leave other people to, everybody has their place. Leave other people to do the work that they're doing. But there is absolutely room for dignity and for being a bit more sophisticated than your average person, and not putting your faith in false idols. You know, we've got a 2,000-year history from a very, very influential book that says worship not false idols. And attention for attention's sake doesn't make any difference. It waxes and it wanes and it wears off with the sweet sound passage of time because it's not useful. And when people are trying to prove a point, often what they will do is they will say the most shocking and pattern interrupting things that they can say, but the vast majority of it, if not all of it, frankly, is unverifiable. It's not tangible. It's not rooted in anything real. It's all part of having a worldview and trying to cram every single thing that happens into this myopic and very narrow worldview, whatever that may be. And what you will notice, that if you pay attention to the language that is used online, what you will get is lots of different flurries of terminology appearing, and people trying to sort of claim the territory and start using words that don't really have much meaning, but that a lot of people will latch onto in order that they be relevant. But there is absolutely vast amounts of space for speaking in very focused and direct but simple language. Don't get caught in the weeds of starting to use terms like, I'm afraid it's the difference. It's what Winston Churchill said about the Americans and the English. Two people divided by the same language. But I notice now that a lot of Englishmen are starting to adopt American terminology and will start saying things like, oh, I was putting on my eyeglasses. No. If you're saying, oh, he was wearing glasses, that doesn't need a qualifier. We know that he's not walking around with rocks tumblers on his, balanced on his eyebrows, you know. We understand we don't need to say eyeglasses, or we don't need to say sidewalk, and we don't need to say a Ring doorbell, because it's just a doorbell. And what else do you do with a doorbell besides ring it, you know? It's all making everything more complicated, more laborious. And this is what attention seeking does. It will push people down rabbit holes so far that they come out of the other end and they don't really know where they are. And they've spouted off all of this stuff that you absolutely cannot prove. And we know that we can't prove a lot of the things that we hear because we've had absolutely no direct contact with the event that's happened itself to possibly be able to claim that we are providence, that we are arbiters of the truth. We cannot do it. I believe people always say, you know, the future is female or the future is AI. But the one that if I have to adopt a particular stance, I definitely believe that the future is more local, getting out into the real world where people haven't heard of phrases like aura maxing, all these bizarre words that start to emerge when people get so embroiled in it's almost sort of tribalistic language that people want you to adopt, so that everything like this will it will expand and expand and expand until it's the entire universe. Live as much as you can as a normal human being who witnesses things with his own eyes there in the real world. The way that I produce my content, I wanted it to be grounded in as much reality as possible, because what I observe is that no matter which tribe you are talking about online, and there are as many as there are blinks in the universe a day, the really, really important thing is that we don't let ourselves get completely absorbed by all of it and trying to be all things to all people all of the time. And it's really I really do genuinely see people absolutely desperate just to prove things wrong all the time. That's not about solutions. What do people do? And I tweeted out earlier a scheduled tweet. I feel very clever scheduling tweets because it's working and not working at the same time. It's very clever. But I said, well, we've got a general election now kind of perpetually looming in the UK, whether it's going to be next week or next decade, who the fuck knows. But the thing is, everybody's saying, oh, you must vote for this party that's emerged, party that's emerged in the UK. I keep doing this all the time, this is another thing, all this stuff spreads, doesn't it? But this party that's emerged in the UK called Reform. But the trouble is that they're not going to have enough candidates to actually put forward to have seats in government. And people think, yeah, you've got to vote for this party. And so, well, yes, but there's not going to be anybody to vote for because Nigel Farage keeps falling out with them and banishing them from the party. Please explain this to me, this magical solution. If we believe that voting in another government is going to make the blindest bit of difference anyway. And also all of this stuff that people get locked in of nostalgically posting videos of the UK in the 1960s and 1970s saying, oh gosh, wasn't it so brilliant back then? No, it wasn't. I've spoken to my parents who were alive in that time and they said it was bloody awful because nothing worked. Everybody was on strike all the time and it was just rampant socialism and unrest everywhere, So don't fall into the trap of believing that because bad things are happening now, that it's the absolute worst possible time to be alive, because it's not. There have always been hard times and great times and the boom and bust cycle of civilization. The real question is, what are you actually doing?